Buying into a body corporate scheme can be a bit nerve-wracking at first, especially if you don't know what you're looking for, as body corporate fees can drastically change from one complex to the next to the next. You can essentially have two identical looking buildings next to each other, and one have body corporate fees of 2 or 3 thousand a year, and the other one have body corporates of 6 or 7 thousand a year. Today I want to talk through what information you should be looking at when you're looking at buying a unit. And also, if you do own a unit already, I want to talk about two things that you really should be checking each year to make sure you're not paying more fees than you actually need to be. So if you are looking at buying a unit, one of the most important documents you should be asking from the sales agent is for the Body Corporate Disclosure Statement. Now, the Body Corporate Disclosure Statement outlines a whole heap of information to do with the complex. And because of this, I want to run through it quite thoroughly and give you an example of a Body Corporate Disclosure Statement and give you a breakdown of things that you should be looking at. So let's jump onto the computer and I'll share my screen and give you a bit of an idea of what to look for in those Body Corporate Disclosure Statements. If you are looking at buying a unit in Queensland, you should be able to request from the sales agent or the person selling the property a Body Corporate Disclosure Statement. And most of these disclosure statements do follow a very similar format or layout to this one I'm going to run through. So I do want to run through a real example of a disclosure statement and point out some important information that I really think you should be considering before moving forward on a unit. So the Body Corporate Disclosure Statement, the first section normally outlines where the complex is and who looks after the body corporate. So this one's managed by a local Cairns company here. One of the big factors that you should be considering before buying into a complex is how much money there is in the sinking fund. Now, essentially, the easiest way to think about the sinking fund is the body corporate's bank account. Now, the body corporate bank accounts are broken down into two different accounts. The admin account, which covers your day-to-day running of the complex, so that's your garden maintenance, if there's a pool maintenance, your day-to-day expenses, and your sinking fund is there to cover major projects. So does the complex need to be repainted? Does it need a new roof? Does it need new guttering? If you're looking at the complex and it is looking a bit run down, you're obviously going to want quite a healthy sinking fund to cover that upcoming work. Where if you're looking at the complex and it's absolutely immaculate, there really is no point in that sinking fund going up and up and up and having $1 million in the sinking fund, for instance, if there's only 10 units and those 10 units are practically brand new. So definitely have a look at your sinking fund. And this is probably one of my big tips to look at saving money on your body corporate fees. Say you've only got 5 units in the complex, they're pretty immaculate, there's no major work coming up. I would say there's not much need to having more than sort of 5 to 10,000 in the sinking fund per unit. So if there's 10 units in the complex, if you've got 50 to 100,000 in the sinking fund and no major works coming up, you can really look at slashing your sinking fund contributions. So this complex here, essentially there's 8 units in this complex. They've got 36,000 and they're making pretty small contributions. They're making $750 per year contributions towards the sinking fund, but there was no upcoming maintenance on this complex and is probably the right amount to be contributing towards the sinking fund. So have a look at that. The other bonus is if you are looking at buying something and say 5 units in the complex and there's 100,000 in the sinking fund, that means there's 20,000 per unit there. You can use those funds, and if you're on the body corporate, put forward proposals to upgrade the complex, make it look more appealing. There's really no point sitting hundreds of thousands of dollars in those fund accounts if the complex doesn't need it, or if the complex is looking run down. They are your funds as part owner in the complex, so really look at utilizing them as best as possible. The big important section of the disclosure statement, what most people are concentrating on, is how much are their contributions per annum. So for this complex here, the total contributions per annum to the body corporate is 3,140. And we can see that's broken down to 2,390 towards the admin funds. So once again, the day-to-day runnings of the complex, and 750 towards the sinking fund. Now that's quite a reasonable body corporate fee, especially up here in Queensland, to be around that 3,000 mark. If they are sitting up higher than that, it's important to have a look at why. Why are those funds so much higher? Sometimes it's a matter of if there's an on-site manager, they cost a little bit more to keep someone on site 24/7 at the complex.
It might be an older, more run-down complex where they're trying to add up the sinking fund to really put some more money there to attend to maintenance items. Or the classic seems to be if there is lifts in the complex, lifts must be extremely expensive to maintain. And we do notice a massive jump in body corporate fees whenever we are looking at complexes with lifts. So those annual contributions payable per lot is what most people focus on, and for good reason. So have a look there, but also make sure that if your fees are low, that you're not actually getting, into trouble with nothing in the sinking fund and major works coming up. Because even though your contributions might be low today, if there's not much in the sinking fund and the roof needs to be redone, there's a very good chance that you're going to end up paying a special levy or increased fees very quickly into the future. The next section shows how many units are in the complex. So in this complex, it was a complex of 8, and as all the units were the same, essentially there's one contribution out of 8, meaning that all 8 units are paying the same amount of fees. And in regards to interest, this comes back to insurance mostly, and essentially this says that everyone will get paid out the same amount if something was to happen to the building. We outline common property here and what lot owners are responsible for, and any exclusive use sections. Any special levies, this is important. Sometimes there is special levies raised to look after certain maintenance items, or sometimes even insurance levies. So have a look and make sure there's no special levies. And then through this section is just when your levies are actually payable. And then your insurance details. Insurance is one of those things in a massive spot where you can save a lot of money when it comes to body corporate fees. And I do want to run through an example of this. Just recently, I actually own a unit, and it's in a small complex, a complex of just 4 units. And we received this email from essentially the body corporate manager, and they provided 2 quotes for our insurance renewals, one at 10,000 and one at basically 12,000. Considering there was only 4 units in this complex, and I think the insurable value was like 1.5 million, paying 3,000 per unit seemed absolutely absurd. And the fact that this went to a broker, and I don't want to pay out on insurance brokers, and I'm not a licensed broker, so I can't comment on insurance too much. But the fact that we're paying 3,000 per unit just seemed excessive. So I put out my feelers, and we ended up getting another quote from Amy Insurance, who I've had a few dealings with in the past and have been fantastic. And once again, not an insurance broker, can't comment too much on their policy. But essentially, we got their insurance down to 1,800. So when you compare that to 10 or 12,000, 10 or 12,000 were their previous quotes by insurance brokers that we pay to find us the best policies. The fact that we're able to then secure a policy for 1,800 for that whole complex does make me question insurance brokers. But anyway, that's another story for another day. But it does point out that if you are paying excessive amounts for insurance for body corporate, it is worth shopping around, as there are several insurers that are meeting the market these days and drastically slashing the costs of insurance. So by doing this, we've essentially saved about 2,500 on our body corporates per unit in that complex of 4. So we're saving about eight to 9,000 in that complex. So if you are struggling with higher body corporate fees, or you're seeing a unit that you are attracted to, but the body corporate fees are high, have a good look at the insurance premiums. How much are you paying for per year for insurance? So this complex, once again, was a block of 8, and their insurance was only 4,000, so about 500 per unit. I really do feel if you're paying any more than 1,000 per unit at the moment, you really need to be having a look at why. There is several insurers out there in Cairns that are providing much more affordable options. So that's sort of it for the disclosure statement. Oh, it comes in to show you the unit sizes as well on this one. But that's sort of the information for the disclosure statement. So the 2 big things I wanted to point out here, if you do own a unit, I want you to have a look at your sinking fund contributions, see how much you are actually putting away into that body corporate bank account, and see how much is in the sinking fund. There's really no reason to have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in the sinking fund unless it's a very, very big complex. As a general rule, I seem to think sort of 5 to 10,000 per unit is absolutely ample, unless there is some major maintenance issues coming, and then you might want to raise fees to cover those issues into the future. And then with insurance, like I say, I'm not an insurance broker, but I really think you should be shopping around and not just taking the insurance broker's word that this is the best policy. Have a look around. If you're paying any more than $1,000 per unit, have a chat with your body corporate manager, find out what the reason is for those higher insurance premiums, as it can save you a drastic amount. As the example I gave of the unit that we own one in, we essentially managed to save around $8,000 for a complex of four, so $2,000 per unit in that complex. That's a massive saving, and that's cash just straight back in our pocket at the end of the year, rather than going towards paying insurance premiums. So I hope that is of help. If you are looking at buying a unit, I hope that gives you some information as to what you should be looking for. And if you do own a unit, really, I do encourage you to have a look at those sinking fund contributions and your insurance premiums. See if you can save money there. At the end of the day, if you can save $1,500, $2,000 a year, that's certainly a big saving, and it's money in your pocket that you can do stuff with at the end of the day. Hope this video is of help, and if you are looking at buying in the Cairns region, I would absolutely love to help. We do run a buyer's agency up here and help a lot of buyers look at securing properties up this way. As always, guys, have a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you soon.